Welcome to Declare Your Independence. It's Wednesday, Cinco de Mayo, the 5th of May, 2021, at least where I'm at. I don't know what the hell date it is where James is.
It's Thursday the 6th. Come on.
Get with the times. Thursday the 6th. Well, we're still drinking Coronas and getting Corona or whatever. Donna and I are in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Her father died Friday, and it was not unexpected, but kind of sudden. So the love bus is on the way, all the family here, and a bunch of Arizona people, not so masked up. So that's been interesting. Pennsylvania is one of those, but everything's going to change at the end of the month, right? May 31st, it's okay, unless they get the 70% vaccination, then you can get out of detention early or something. It is just craziness. We can go on and on about that. But what I wanted to start off with James Corbett, CorbettReport.com. And what I wanted to talk about is this week he had a couple of shows up that he, pulled out of the archives and thought, important to bring them up now. We're always checking James, whatever new shows that we have, we put them up on Freedom's Phoenix. And if it's an old show and he thought it was important, it goes up too. And I can see why. Who is Carol Quigley? So I'm going, why did you pick that one, James?
The best part is that you attribute this to some sort of scheme I have for some sort of information dissemination schedule or something. Here's the truth. This extra, which is when I take an old podcast and I give it over to Brock and he puts the images on to make it into a video. We do this all the time. But so this one we started about 6 months ago or something like that. And it's just been on the back burner as we're working on other things.
Audio that didn't have a video to it.
Exactly right. So this is for 13-year-old podcast. But it's still as relevant today as it was 13 years ago, right? I mean, this is pretty timeless information.
I said watched it.
We've had in the works for the past 6 months, and Brock has been working on it in between other projects and things. And literally last week, I didn't have another podcast to put out. So I thought, well, I'll put that one out because we have it on the back burner, right? Okay, so I said, Brock, get it ready. And it's funny because I did that on a Wednesday or Thursday. I decided, okay, I'm going to release that this week. Like 24 hours later, someone on my website left a comment, something about Carol Quigley and questioning about that. And then I posted this podcast up. So that person thinks it is because they left a comment about Carol Quigley is the reason I suddenly posted this podcast. No, it's been in the work for 6 months. But no, there's no special reason why I picked now to bring this up other than the fact that it is still absolutely very important information. And I have to keep in mind that I have gained a large number of new followers over the past year. So I do take it for granted often. Everyone knows Carol Quigley. I've talked about it all, dozens of times. Everyone knows that story. But then I post something like this and I get comments from people. Hey, thanks for posting this. I hadn't seen this in your archives. And this is really important information.
It was timely as hell.
So, I mean,
tell the people, who Carol Quigley, because a lot of people don't know. I mean, so go ahead and tell them who Carol Quigley was and how it's relevant now. I mean, it was timely to bring this up. You go, who is Bill Gates, and you do your World War I conspiracy, and you got, a lot of the other stuff. Who is, how big oil conquered the world? Why? Quigley was out in these guys after a lot of this stuff happened. He was like, they're proud of it too. So it was. A lot of the interviews, as they were asking him stuff, he'd be like, well, we can't get too deep into I want to know all the rest of that story, But
be careful how you frame this, Ernie, because every single time I ever talk about Carol Quigley, there are people saying, why are you praising Carol Quigley as if he's some kind of whistleblower, James? He's not a whistleblower. He was part of them. And he was like, yeah, okay. Yes, he was an establishment professor. Absolutely. And he said on the record, he said, I have no problem. I have no quibble with their aims or goals or what they're trying to do. I think that's all fine and dandy. My only problem is they're trying to keep it secret. And I think it should be public. And yes, absolutely. And I wish people would get over this, whether this is some sort of veneration of Carol Quigley as an insider whistleblower, or whether this is just information that's coming out. It doesn't matter. The point is the information itself is important. And it's one of those, what do you call it in a courtroom? It's admission against interest or whatever that is, where this is from a source that we should be giving even more attention because it is the very type of source that would not normally be the one to expose this, right? I mean, if you had some sort of outsider who was writing about this, you could go, oh, well, that's just that crazy, G. Edward Griffin. Of course, he's a conspiracy nutter or whatever. But no, this is a guy who's on board and in bed and on the team and saying, yes, this is great stuff, but why are we keeping it secret? Let's make it open, guys. And then so he tries to make it open, and for some reason the publisher does a limited run, and then despite the fact they were supposed to give him the printing plates back and everything after the run, they didn't. They destroyed them, and he was expressing a bit of bewilderment at this and whatever. Anyway, read into the psychology of that, whatever you want. I don't care. The point is the information that he exposed and documented, which to a certain extent was already out there if you knew how to read, for example, the Last Will and Testament of Cecil B. Rhodes by William T. Stead and all of that. I mean, a lot of this was already out there in various forms and you could connect pieces, but this is the inside version of that story, or at least as much of that inside story as he was willing and able to put on the record. As you say, if you listen to the interviews with him, he's constantly like, well, maybe we shouldn't. Well, can you turn the recording off? Let's not get into that right now.
Well, the one thing that I found of interest, I understood, from hearing about it before or listening to your stuff before, or just over, you're old enough and you learn about Quigley, what his real aim was, is that he was tooting the trumpet. He was proud of it. They gave him access to a lot of this information. So he's like, look what we're doing, and no. And then they started to deny it. Later they go, whoa, we got to get a little bit more secret about it because something happened. What happened to where they kind of needed to back off? Was somebody, it didn't go over as well as they thought it would or something? What happened?
I don't know. I can only speculate. And all that we know on the record is that he was given access to some of their secret archives, as it were, for a couple of years. And I don't think he ever intimated exactly who particularly gave him that access or under what terms, but I'm going to assume that they were not necessarily expecting that he was going to write it all in a major work of history that was going to be widely available to the public. Or I think there might have been some terms and conditions that applied to his access to that material that maybe he didn't read between the lines or whatever. But again, that's all speculative. All we know is what's on the record. And we know that he put this information out there and it was quite obviously brushed to the side, and let's not talk about that ever again. So that's at least one good reason why people should at least be examining what was written there.
Well, this brings up, Richard Grove was all about, he always goes about artifacts, his whole thing is to get the actual book, and he had to get earlier version. I mean, he's tracking it down to get to where it hadn't been scrubbed. There was a bunch.
Right. Yeah, and then that's an important point because a couple of people have pointed out in my video of this podcast. So again, the podcast is from 2008. And at that time, I was using an online copy of Tragedy and Hope, which is not the full version. It has, for example, in some of the passages I was reading, it has the square brackets and the ... dots. And I was reading it as it was on the screen there for me in 2008, the best version that I could find online at that time. So fast forward to 2021, and I have the actual physical copy. I have you can go to the archive.org copy, for example, and you can read some of the passages I was reading, and those square brackets and ... dots are filled in with the actual text of what Carroll Quigley was actually writing. And it is slightly different, and the wording is different. So I put the text as I can find it now from my hard copy or from the archive.org copy on screen, whereas me in 2008, I'm reading this square brackets ellipsis version. And so people are saying, well, why are you reading a different version than the one you're showing on screen? Well, because these are two separate things from two separate time frames that I'm looking at. And it does go to the point that as you say, there were different versions of Tragedy and Hope that were published over the years, some of them official, some of them unofficial. And so some of the original text of what he actually wrote there is a question mark. Is this the actual text, or was this one of those sort of unofficial publications that were done afterwards with the square brackets and stuff, or not always square brackets? Maybe they were just inserting their own text. Yeah, so there is some questions about the actual authenticity of the actual copy of the text.
You did this week, I didn't see it on your site now, but it was when I was looking before, was interview you did with, I didn't get to watch it, but I saw it up there. I was Joe Plummer's, Tragedy and Hope 101. I've had him on the show. We've talked about it and so on. And it's, somebody took the time to read it and kind of give me the Cliff Note version down to, a couple hundred pages or something. I mean, thank you, But did you read his book? Or do you think it was a fair summary?
Yeah, I did read it, and it goes through some of the important passages and fills in some of the details, puts the context in there. For anyone who doesn't want to plow through the 1,300-page version of the book, or even people who do but actually need the context of it, I would absolutely recommend Plummer's book. And the best part is Joe Plummer's book is available for free if you want it. It's up on his website for free reading. Or you can purchase a copy and, help him out.
What do we get out of this? I mean, if I had to sum it up for, it's just, there is a they, them, those secret handshake club society of we're going to, unify the universe and they're going to be in charge kind of thing. And the main thing is they talk about, Cecil Rhodes a lot, and Rhodes, in his, fifth and final, whatever will, his main thing was we need to bring back the consolidation of white America and British crown of we rule the planet kind of thing. And it's referenced a lot that it was his, there were previous wills. Did this fifth one or whatever cancel the previous ones, or it was just an add-on, or what?
There were 7 wills. And yes, the idea was it was evolving. These wills were written sequentially as he was getting older, but not old. He died young. I can't remember how old, but in his 40s, I think. So he did not die an old man, but he had already done 7 different wills. And each one had a different executor named and all of that sort of thing. And then you get people who just mindlessly parrot, cut and paste text from somewhere they read on the net that Lord Nathan Rothschild was the sole executor of his will. Question mark, asterisk, which will? He did have 7, and they all had different executors and things. Anyway, it always gets more complicated the more you look into it. But yes, in one of his wills, it did start to talk about the implementation of the secret society and all of that. So you can go, again, you can go read this. This is open information. William T. Stead wrote the last will and testament of Cecil B. Rhodes, and
which one was there for his last one, the Rhodes Scholarship. The bottom line is he wanted to use a fortune to and you can say how rich he was and he did in Africa, whatever, he did a bunch of money. And the point is that the British should rule. The sun shall never set on the British Empire in perpetuity or something. And the reason for that was what?
Right. That was the point that Cecil B. Rhodes was all about. But as if you read, for example, the Anglo-American Establishment, which is a much shorter book, but it talks about some of the same stuff, you certainly start to understand that, yeah, that was the original thing that Rhodes envisioned. But after his death, and as the sort of center of power of this amorphous secret society group started to shift, for example, Lord Milner kind of took it over at a certain point, it wasn't so much about Rhodes' vision at all anymore. It was more about setting up a global empire and, maybe it's going to be based in America, but with Anglo participation or blah, blah, blah. And I think that's continued to evolve. So after World War II, because Anglo-American Establishment, Tragedy and Hope basically ends at World War II-ish time frame. So what happened after that point? And obviously some of these structures that he's writing about still exist. There's still the Chatham House and CFR and things. But I think the point isn't to dwell specifically on Cecil B. Rhodes and his particular vision. The point is to understand, as G. Edward Griffin goes through in the clip that I played, and I've referred people to a number of times recently, the Quigley formula, which is really the Rhodes formula, which is the idea of creating a secret society that is structured in a way that only the very, very core even knows that it exists, but they have larger and larger institutions around them that they can essentially direct and control without those larger institutions even knowing that there is that core in the center. And that, to me, is important because it shows how a conspiracy can function. How does it actually function? What does it actually look like? How does it work? How do a few people control the actions of thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people in any way that's not some sort of comic book sort of thing? They create these structures around them, these rings within rings, and are able to direct it from the center in that way. That is, I think, the core principle that we have to understand. And then, obviously, if you're interested in the history, what actually happened in the late 19th, early 20th century, this fills in some of those details.
You know, we just had G. Edward on a few days ago, and to promote his Red Pill Expo that's going on in um, uh, Cedar Rapids, I think, in South Dakota. Okay.
Yeah, which I'll be giving a presentation at, by the way.
Yeah, I asked him about that. You know, I goes, he coming? Is he guy? You're doing a video thing or whatever, you know. And I'm like, I don't count. But you know, it's I'm sure it'll be awesome, and we're going to be there. You know, we have you know, a lot of friends and so on. And whenever they have the Red Pill, we always interview G. Edward, and we probably interview, you know, something like we had Dr. Shiva on today and or yesterday, and but a lot of times I'll go and I'll wait before I interview a lot of the guys, because you don't want to take all their steam out, you know, before, but you know, you interview them afterwards, and the people that I really like. And I've made a lot of really good friends and interviews of people that have spoken at these Red Pills. And G. Edward started them in Phoenix. You know, we heavily promoted, you know, the first one, well, it was a global warming thing, or what in the world are they spraying, or, you know, it was environmental, whatever the heck, resistance years ago. And G. Edward is really, he's more anarchist than people realize. If you spend a lot of time with him and you talk to him, you're having breakfast or dinner, you know, the best he'll give government is a protectorate. And it's supposed to be a protectorate of your rights. It's like the Declaration of Independence. Purpose of government, defense of individual rights. Well, he has Freedom Forum International, which have some friends on there. I've been invited and so on. I'm just like, no, you know, what can I do to help? Got Red Pill University, people getting up to speed. And the end of this, the goal is to not fight City Hall, but be City Hall. So he's really into he knows how corrupt it is, but to run for office, you know, it has to be, you have to take over the government or shoot them. I mean, I guess, I don't know what your options, you know. So trying to go the peaceful route and participate in politics.
Yeah.
Good.
But I think we're starting to convince him because, as you say, people who have watched his career arc over, what is it, like 60 years now, more than 60 years, he's been talking about this kind of conspiracy stuff. Before I was born, before when my parents were still, you know, children, he was already talking about this stuff, and he had the capitalist conspiracy and things like that. That he was talking about,
man. And it was awesome.
Yeah, he was absolutely right on, but he was looking at it obviously in the 1950s and 60s. He was looking at it in the, you know, anti-communist framework, right? So it was that sort of bubble. But as he has gone on over the decades, and you see his work kind of expand, and his understanding, for example, of the Quigley formula starting to add pieces to this puzzle, he's constantly sort of adding to the work that he's done. So people will look back to things that he did in the 1960s and be like, well, you know, that's not the way it worked. Well, yeah, he was doing this 60 years ago when the amount of information at people's fingertips was a lot smaller. So he has changed over the years. And in the last decade in particular, I think he has become, as you say, more and more leaning towards voluntarism and understanding that government is not going to be the solution. I don't know if he's all the way there yet.
You know, when Don and I go back to Arizona, I mean, what I got to do? Just start, you know, filling magazines. I mean, you know, what do you got to do? I mean, and there's a lot of bad stuff going on. We had Liz Harris on from doing the recount in Maricopa County, and I had like an hour and a half conversation with her over the weekend. You know, a lot of people like, you know, it's time for you to talk to Ernie. So we got in touch with each other, and then she came on the show. But she was like, "Oh yeah, we got this and doing the recount." And they're going. I go, "No, they're not." "No, yeah, no, we got the order." I go, "No, they're not." You know, I go, "Watch," you know, because I already knew. I go, you don't know who you're dealing with. You don't understand how this really, that's why they wanted you to talk to me, because you don't really understand what's going on. He goes, "Well, I almost won. I was only 0.8% behind." I go, "Hell, I say you won." You know what? I'm going, "Oh, you guys are killing me." So we have to go through this. But my thing is that when we get back, my focus is, you know, just general public opinion. The other stuff takes care of itself eventually, you know, and it'll manifest itself in whatever form: politics, not politics, force, aversion, you know, ignoring, whatever. Government hates to be ignored. That's one thing. But so we're living in Arizona for the rest of our life, and I got 12 grandkids and 4 kids. A lot of them are here now. And I'm just like, this is not going, I'm not going to go quietly into that good night, but I'm not going to count vote totals. You know,
No.
my
Yeah.
in-laws, they're going, well, who'd you vote for? Are you vote? Well, I don't vote. What? You're a big political and you run for. I go, oh yeah, I run all the time, but I don't vote. I know better than that. And they're like, whoa. I go, really? Do you want to hear the whole story? No, make it stop. No, I really do. So you separate the crowd. Ernie and whoever wants to know goes over there. So, but with what's happened over the last year, doesn't take that much convincing anymore. They're seeing it happen. You start filling in a couple of blanks, and they're going, "Oh, and what do I do? I have selected James freaking Corbett videos that answer a lot of whatever, and freaking you need this one, which is why we save this stuff." And that's one thing. Dr. Mercola, he comes out and says, I don't know if it's some marketing, gimmick or what, but he goes, I'm being forced to take down COVID-19 videos, zinc, vitamin D, and some other cure the plague on the planet kind of stuff that he's taken and permanently deleting off of his site. And I'm like, what the hell is that about? So of course amps up the guys. We have all of the data scraped off in the IPFS. They're setting up format and make it all pretty because this had a bunch of subdomains and made it complicated. It's a pain in the ass. So, and did you get the email from for working on your site?
Yep.
So
Yep.
helping streamline, getting everybody all kind of where this is easier for Web 3. Kiss my butt. Well, Mercola, the first thing, some people that come to us and they said, well, did you work with them? Did you ask permission? I go, no, we didn't. Well, they might what? I don't give a crap. We saved this data. So this is something that's important to the planet. And this is what makes the bad guys successful at what they're doing. They scare you into submission. I don't know why he's doing it. I don't care. So we're just saving the data and making it available. So in my opinion.
Yep.
But need that material, especially like James stuff. My mother-in-law, we have books of Dr. Judy's books on the bus. So she wants to read them. Boom, giving them to her. Then it's going to go into the retirement community that she's at. We got some extra books and there's other stuff, and she's ready for meet who is Bill Gates. And I go, you sure you want to do this?
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to do that. Okay, here we go. And I texted it to her, and I had to use the BitChute link and so on, make sure that, you get it. And this is in the end game of this. It's just what I keep saying, general public opinion. When we were at the the family viewing for my father-in-law today at the funeral home, and some of my kids are adamant, they're not wearing a mask. And they read Pennsylvania law. And the law is that you have to abide by if they got, a condition, and you can't ask this, that, and everything. So they didn't, follow the law explicitly. But one of my daughters, has an actual card from her doctor of, it's a long story, but she don't wear a mask. And they're like, damn it, I hate when, these freaking Arizonans come in and they know the law and crap, So but what happens, it sets a standard and an example for everybody else. They're like, well, hey, what that? They think everybody is willingly compliant with this thing, and they're not. I had to go to the mall today. I'm the only one, I had to get a shirt for tomorrow. I'm the only one that doesn't have a mask. I go into Men's Warehouse, pick a couple of shirts, couple of ties, go in there, didn't say a word, get it, walk out. And the only people in the mall that weren't wearing a mask were it looked like they were, I don't know, the Afghanis in the kiosk in the middle of the thing selling sunglasses or something. I mean, veils are for women. So it's just been, you got to be a leader. Just be an example. You're not going to be a jerk about they told me to leave or just left, or I had to wear a mask. I'll take my money with me. That is gone, and it used to be expected in America. And I'm wondering what you think happened. Is it still there? Is it going to resurrect? Were we scared? Is it social media? What do you think happened to America?
Well, look, I don't know about the American cultural situation, but here's what I want to underline in what you're saying right now. It is exceptionally important that people be a leader when and if and as they can on those issues that they can, to be and exemplify that behavior that they feel is the true normal, not the new normal or the old normal, but true normal humanity. You have to exemplify that in order to spread it to others. But also, for many years, obviously, I've gotten the feedback, oh, James, you're just talk. When are you going to do something? As if I'm going to pick up an M16 and go shoot someone in the head or something and solve the world's problems. but no, realistically, I've thought about that for many years. Oh yeah, it is just talk. But no, I now understand on a deeper level than I ever did before that the most important thing I can possibly be doing is spreading this information. That is the baseline for absolutely everything else that will ever be accomplished, is the spreading of the information and the data, but perhaps even more importantly, the worldview and the philosophy. What is behind this? Why do I care about human freedom? And what does that mean? And how do we manifest that? Thinking about that, talking about that, modeling that is the most important thing I can be doing. I'm not saying everyone out there should be starting a podcast or whatever. That's some people will, some people won't, whatever. But for me personally, my gifts, my abilities, I cannot think of anything that I could be doing more effective than turning people's minds on to this information, this worldview. And people dismiss that and poo-poo it to their own detriment, because this is the foundation that we build all the solutions on, is an understanding of why we are doing it.
Well, the big thing, that's why I'm so motivated to, save your work. And that of a lot of people. We've been platforming a lot of sites on IPFS. They can't take them down now. We just did Lou Rockwell, Dr. Mercola, yourself, a bunch of others. I don't want to try and list them off, but then of course ourselves. But there's some stories before we go. I wanted to just hit some of these and get your opinion on some things, because just craziness afoot. I mean, everywhere. It's just wow. Well, one of them, this new 6G chip could download Netflix film in less than a blink of an eye. Well, hell, give me 40G, whatever. Let's just get her done. I mean, is there any sacrifice we're not willing to make to get fast internet?
Yeah, no. And people will have seen, I've played the clip a couple of times now, when Trump was doing his big 5G push, and he had the announcement when he had the, the telecom workers standing behind him, and he was saying, America is leading the way on 5G, and we're the greatest, and we're blah, blah, blah. And we're empowering our companies to lay out the 5G grid ahead of China and all that kind of stuff that he was saying at the time. And he did slip in a comment there, something about, and we'll probably lead in 6G as well. And people in the crowd kind of laughed at that as if it was a joke. But I don't think people know. No, the 6G is already, they're already working on the specs and testing it in the labs. As we often say, the tech is 20 years ahead of whatever you're seeing commercially right now. So you better believe, 6G is already on the way after they get the public condition to 5G and they spend a decade rolling out all the systems for that. Then 6G will be next, and they're working on it already.
As a journalist, going to the Consumer Electronics Show they used to have before COVID, I think they're going to try and open up this year again, next year, but it's in Las Vegas. And it's all the tech, and you'll see it there about 3 years before you see, the commercial version of it. And you really want to get it advanced. You go into the basement of the Venetian, where you got the 10 by 10 guys, 10 by 10 foot little square guys in their new university. If I got a new widget or something, and that's their marketing to the guys that come to then go on the next floor. That then becomes consumer electronics. And I get a pretty much a head start on a lot of things by that. And if you did some technical manuals or science magazines, or you just think, what do they want to do? Well, here it comes. They're doing it. And the one thing that you can always count on is that there is an effort to get a government contract, and you can feel that they're going, well, we could be the more controlling, super duper mind screwing, whatever, pick us, and of course they do. So I lost interest in it, because a lot of the consumer electronics, it was all more surveillance. It was surveillance,
Yep.
surveillance, tracking data.
Yep.
You know, I mean, it got so I don't even care anymore. Nothing that
If only some president could have warned us about this on his way out the door 50 or 60 years
Right.
ago. Oh, wait, right. I think Eisenhower did say something about that, didn't he?
You know, the thing is that it was when he was talking, they're talking about the military industrial complex. If you read that speech carefully, I was always of the opinion it wasn't about that. That was a side effect. You know, he's going,
Yeah.
It was the scientific technological elite. That's what he's worried about.
Exactly.
Tell you what's going to happen. You know, all
Yep.
this garage, blackboard, you know, individual ingenuity crap is going to go out the window. And here comes the man with this government funded, we're going to rule you stuff. And he warned us of this. And this is what we're seeing. So if you actually read the speech or you watch it, you can see him kind of going like this. They're going to shoot. He said it, you know, it was kind of freak, you know, when that happened.
Yeah. No, I pointed that out. I did a podcast a few years ago on the information industrial complex, and I pointed that out and pointed out those sections of the speech that no one ever talks about. But yeah, the scientific class will be a ruling class, and it will be funded by the government, and it will skew scientific research. Speaking of which,
I wanted to bring up Cody Wilson popped up out of his gopher hole, and
sorry, do you know anything about his legal things going on right now?
All that I know is that we used to be pretty close, and I think he's like, yeah, you talk to Ernie, it makes it on the radio. So, you know, you kind of, you know, we'll hold off for a little while. But I think we'll be going through Austin. I'll go camp out in front of his house or something. But, you know, say yo to him. But what happened was in his case, there was kind of an agreement of shut the heck up. You know, I think that's what this whole thing was about from the beginning anyway, you know. And what he was doing, he did intimate to me that he was working on the super project or the super First Amendment kind of whatever. And I think we got a hint of it here in the speech. And it's called post-political. And the main thing that he's saying is that it's not about voting anymore. We're past that. You know, they're coming. And he goes, defense distributed. He's kind of done what we've been doing with IPFS. He's created a platform that these different gun files and stuff to save us, you know, can post there without being deleted, or they can't. You know, that was the impression that I got, that he was like, you're not going to stop the signal. You know, this is, so that was kind of, he was encouraging people to make use of the platform to be able to have the new plasma super Marvin the Martian weapon of whatever the hell, you know, and just doinking the man. So I don't know what's going on. Hopefully I'll find out. But I just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention to watch it. It's called on Defense Distributed. I think it's still on YouTube. It's post-political speech. And it was only about 27 minutes, but you kind of get an inkling of here it comes. You know, and Cody's definitely wanting to piss him off because that's what he does. You got any comment on that?
I haven't seen it yet, so I don't have any comment, but I'm just wondering, I'm sure Defense Distributed is not just on YouTube at this point, right? I would certainly
No. I was surprised that it was even on YouTube. I mean, you know, a week in the making, but it didn't have anything posted for like a year. So, you know, it was like, you know, and snuck it up on you, you know? So it was like, you know, he held off for this. You see my point? It was you know, the beginning of something. So I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention. Cody never went away. I knew that. You just pissed him off. That was just a bad idea. So, you know, here we go. We'll see what happens. George Bush and Mark Zuckerberg. I don't know. Need I say more? Yeah, we're done. That's all we need to say. The fourth turning. Comment on this. There's I guess it was a book, and it was called The Fourth. Am I right? It's the same guys that did Generation X, I think it was.
Was it? I off the top of my head, I want to say it was Strauss and Howe, but I haven't read the book, so I can't tell you.
I think they did. Well, I read it by doing an Audible. You know, I guess you can say you read it when you listen to the Audible. But it was really pushed by a guest I had on the show that, you know, I respect a lot. And he said, Ernie, you got to read this book. So I had a trip or something, and I listened to it. And basically it goes like this. You have 80-year cycle, 20 years of this, 20 years of that, 20. And it's a different, you know, and then there's the first, second, and fourth turning. By the time what they were predicting is the fourth turning coming now, which is you get, kind of, that's why they call it revolution. It's a wheel. And it used to be, you have revolution, then you get liberty, then you get complacency, and then you get apathy, and then you get totalitarianism, then you get revolution again, something like that. It's kind of a cycle. Well, what the point that they were making, the fourth turning we're in, and it's when you get, a few generations later, you get this certain kind of a psychological, the general public opinion is we don't care, and government and whatever, and you go through this all the time. So this is kind of the gist of it. And I just wondered what, I thought you might have read it or you had something to say about the fourth turning, because it is a thing, and it's
I've definitely read about the fourth turning, and I should read the book. I want to read the book, but I want to read a million books. So anyway, right. I notice every time I ever bring it up, people tend to be very dismissive and poo-pooing it. Oh, this is just wonkery, and they don't know what they're talking about. But I think there's something to this idea, and I don't know if it's rigidly 80-year cycles or whatever, but I see the generational turnings, as it were. That makes sense to me. There's periods of building up, and then there's a period of relative happiness and stability, and then that dissolves. That is the sort of pattern. And yeah, revolution in the sense of coming back to the same spot, but in a different place. It's the winding stair version of history, which I do see. I see some merit to that understanding. However, we reach the breaking point, the potential breaking point in that cycle when we start talking about fundamental changes to humanity, as I often say. And just to bring the glass half empty part to this conversation, we're talking about, the incredible importance of spreading the message of what we're talking about and changing public opinion, until you can't change public opinion, because that isn't done by actual thoughts or words or anything that we understand. It's done by electronic impulses that are being beamed into people's heads. You think that's crazy tinfoil nuttery spoken by some sort of conspiracy nut. No, that's the Chilean government. I don't know if you saw this, but the Economic Times just had a post up on what's in your head. Just like in Nolan's Inception, brain tech can hack your mind. Neuro-rights can keep you safe. And they're talking about the Chilean government is now proposing this idea that we have to have neurological rights to basically prevent companies from being able to tamper with our brains or our behaviors without us knowing. Yeah, well, I'm not going to hold my breath and wait for the Chilean or any other government to do that for me, but that gives you a sense. They are really, they're not relying on just sophisticated propaganda anymore. They are really, truly looking at ways they can control your mind neurologically through nanobots or whatever else is coming. And that's the point at which, however much we try to spread the word and change public opinion, it may be useless at that point. So the winding stair, we keep coming back to this cycle of dissolving and things falling apart. But in the future, at some point, we can't build up again because there's no humanity to build back from if we let it get to that point.
I was just looking up to see if it was the same authors for Gen X, and it wasn't, but I don't know why I made that link, but they were definitely generational stuff, is what was going on. And there's a lot of mechanisms that I think that go all the way back to secret handshake clubs from Aluma, whatever, from the beginning of how to control the masses. You get into modern day with Bernays and, the Nazis and, whatever the hell's going on now. And the goal has always been the same. And it's always, they think they get a little bit closer. They're going, this time, and it's the, what was the, Brzezinski's book, New Age, Between Two Ages, technocracy in America, whatever it was. And it was, you read all this stuff, and then of course the Bilderberg crowd, all in the Rockefellers, they all jump on it and go, look, here it is in writing. Well, it was just a rehash thing from earlier in the century, but it's the same goal. That's what's going on, is they are willing to sacrifice your rights, the prosperity. What it's for them, whatever it takes to get what they want. You just got to find out, what is it they want? Everything. And you're not allowed to bitch, So and you'll love it.
Yep. That's it.
There has to be a point at which it's time to start slitting throats. But when's that happen? And does it ever happen? And I had on a guy, Ridley Scott. He's a videographer. He used to do a lot of videos until YouTube started, shadow banning this one years ago.
Did you say Ridley Scott?
Well, pardon? Ridley Scott.
Did you say Ridley Scott?
Dave Ridley. Dave.
Oh, yeah. I was gonna say the director of Alien. What?
No. Yeah, the Gladiator. Yeah. But Dave Ridley. I'm sorry. It's called Ridley Report. Well, Dave Ridley is an activist in the Free State Project in New Hampshire, and he was doing a lot of coverage. Well, he got the arrest and the FBI raid of the Team Crypto 6. The Bitcoin charges and all this that recently happened. That they're well known here, and it's a big deal. But he's doing a Gandhi walk all across New Hampshire. He can do a good Gandhi. He's kind of slender, bald. He's putting on the robe. He's doing the salt march, man. He's going, because the law is you can't pass out a piece of paper, a petition, anything. You can't hand a federal agent, papers. Well, he found there's some guy in charge of the federal building in New Hampshire, and he was the unlucky guy to be head of security and have his email listed. So, he gets to win, right? So it's a Mr. Crew or something. So he's like, here I come, Mr. Crew, head of security, Zeke Heil. He's touring the state, going around collecting petitions and all that. And you guys are scum, and you were leaving us alone. Now you're not leaving us alone. And now it's on, and sovereignty of, and New Hampshire and everything. And he's going, boom, I'm in violation of the law. I handed you a piece of paper. Arrest me, So
awesome. I would love to see 10,000 times more people doing that type of thing. Yeah,
exactly.
Taking a stupid law and outright making a big deal of it and making the salt march metaphorically or otherwise and doing it and saying, yeah, here I am.
Yeah, explain to people the salt march, what that was about.
I'm not going to know the specifics of the law, but something about people were not allowed to extract, salt for their own purposes under the British colonial laws of India.
You had to pay them taxes on it or something. Yeah.
Exactly, right. Yeah, taxes or whatever. So Gandhi made a big thing about doing a march. We're going to march across the country, and anyone who wants to come, let's go join, and we're all going to go and extract some salt from the sea and see what they do about it. And of course, like so many of his other things, we're all going to openly do this in defiance, in full knowledge that, we might be arrested, but, try arresting several thousand of us or whatever it is. And by that point, obviously, Gandhi was a figure, not just a regular.
He's going to go evaporate some seawater and make some salt, that criminal.
Yeah, exactly. And exposing, and that's exactly the point, exposing the stupidest thing that everyone knows. Well, there's nothing horrible about that. You're not some evil criminal for getting salt out of the sea. And so everyone can see, you come and arrest me in front of full views of all the cameras and everyone who's watching. Come and arrest me for this.
Thank you. I got MK Ultra up there real quick. I'm wondering if is this, we learned that they and those learn a lot from that they're employing now. That's kind of the bottom line. Do you think we're being, manipulated?
Yes. Long story short, yeah.
Okay, now what about this silver thing? How big are you on economics? Is that something you pay attention to?
Yes and no. Yes, but I keep it in perspective because I know it's all fake and phony and rigged. That doesn't mean it's not important, because we all live in a fake and phony and rigged world. So you have to know something about the rigging and what's happening. But yes, long story short, what is happening right now truly is unprecedented. Now they're talking about, it's going to be such a wonderful year because we're going to have one of the greatest rebounds in history. And it's going to be one of the largest, year-on-year GDP growths we've ever seen, because everything will spring back to life as the pandemic shutdown ends and all this, which is, of course, in so many ways, if you put two brain cells to rub together, you understand how ridiculous that is. It's like saying, okay, so we've completely scuttled and tanked and put these chains on the economy for the past year, and now that we're letting it go so that it can maybe crawl back to someplace near where it was before, hopefully, if everything goes right, that'll be like some sort of fantastic rebound. And it's look at all this percentage growth year on year that it's creating, where it's so we're going to be back to where we were in 2019. Yay. Yeah, like exactly. It's all smoke and mirrors. And again, just the way that they report it makes it feel like it's different than that. Anyway, we are living through an incredibly transformative economic event, and I don't think people are still quite as appreciative of that as they should be, because I think one of the real stories of the 2020s is going to be the monetary transformation that they are already starting to put us through. They are already trialing the digital currencies, the central bank digital currencies in many countries. It's coming in the US and elsewhere, and they're just preparing us for that. And so what's your solution? What are you going to do about it? Well, I did talk about survival currencies previously on the podcast, so people can check that out. But I need to do more deep dives on the monetary issue, because that is going to be an incredibly important part of the transformation, the Great Reset.
You know, I want to get your help on one thing. I am really interested, and I've really been putting the feelers out on this one thing. You know, it's a community thing. It's been on the buzzword on a lot of people. They're starting to realize that they need to come together as families or small groups or something, and just add their distinctiveness, you know, to the group of being able to, you know, be an ad. Because if you're not an ad, get the hell out, man. What are you good for? I'm not dragging your ass along. So you got to have some skills, but you're going to need something from other people that you don't. So this community is going to manifest itself in some way. And it used to be, you know, community, a town, a city, this or that or whatever. But now it's getting to where it's a physical, where am I who's helping me in the field? I mean, you know, it's going to be a food thing. You know, I can guarantee that. So I'm looking at, you know, what do I have to do? What am I prevented from doing? And what's your conflict resolution? So I'm looking for a community guideline format. So, you know, I remember when we were examining marriage, you know, as a contract, and I wrote an article, you know, early in my activist, you know, like early 90s or something. It was my fourth menage a trois with Uncle Sam or something like that. And it was prima nocte, you know, it's like in Braveheart, you know, you had this, okay, I'm going to take your bride on her wedding night and honor and bless this marriage with my semen, so say as, you know, the Lord kind of crap, you know. And I'm going, yeah. So when I started to realize we got married here in Pennsylvania, we go to Arizona, the contract changed. And it could change on the fly. They just change it, whatever. I go, whoa, what the heck? You tell me my wedding night, I had a prima nocte with Uncle Sam? There was this forced menage a trois with the government? You know, how the hell did that happen, you know? So I'm looking for the contract. You know, what's the deal? This important community thing. I wanted to be able to get a marriage contract from multiple men's magazines. I mean, you know, women's magazines, you merge the two, you got 200 choices, you file it as a, you know, contract document with whatever the hell, you know, who gets the dog. I mean, it's amazing that we take all these other things so seriously, but we don't even know what the hell the contract is. You get married. What the hell? You know, so no. So I need to know the contract up front. I want to know, you know, probably where I'm going to live and the community and people around me, you know, may be the second most important contract that I have next to my marriage, you know? So I'm really looking for that. And I would appreciate you come across something or you ask somebody about it, or these other guys doing it. What's your contract? What do I have to do? What am I prevented from doing? What's your conflict resolution? I can get that. Then I got something to work with. But nobody has an answer. They were like, well, wow, really? You haven't thought even that far? So you start checking on it, you'll see.
Yeah.
They're not that deep on it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Bill and Melinda Gates.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, did we talk about that? Okay. I will make this prediction before you go. This is what I think is going on. One, You don't make a divorce of this much money and this kind of without the permission slip or something. I mean, this is like a monarchy kind of thing. You know, you're not just going to, you know, separate this baby. I mean, you know, there's something else going on. I am of the opinion that whatever it is that they're both into, one of them is going to continue, or they're going to double up, or they're going to compete with each other, or whatever the heck. They're still on the path, unless one of them is going to out the other one. That ain't going to happen because one of them will be dead. So, you know, I'm going, okay, so what's going on? They're going to protect the brand, or, you know, the overall mission. I think Bill Gates is compromised. I think there's an Epstein thing going on, or his ex-girlfriend they're going to do. There's going to be some crap going on, and you're going to see the strong woman of you know, Melinda is going to be the one because I love the babies or something. There's something, it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. So somebody get cut off. I don't know who, what, don't really care. It's they, them, those, which, you know, comment, what do you think is going to happen?
Well, let me give the most optimistic take because I got to go. So let's leave on something optimistic. So maybe they know that the hammer's about to come down and Bill's about to get exposed, or they're going to be put in jail or something or whatever. So this is their preemptive way of splitting up the assets so they can at least keep some of them off to the side so that Bill or whoever or Melinda can take the fall.
If she gets $1 more, that's exactly what's going on.
At any rate, that would be hopeful in the sense that, hey, maybe something's actually going to happen and they're actually going to get exposed and something. But I don't believe that is likely. But hey, you never know, right?
And it's entertainment. And CorbettReport.com, an asset that we make sure that we have available because I use it all the time.
Yeah.
You.
Well, I hope CorbettReport.com is not entertainment. I hope it's informative, and I hope I don't get caught up in the distractions, but I'll do my best, and let's keep doing this. Again, for my audience who doesn't know it, we talk like this every single week, so people should be tuning in directly to Declare Your Independence and subscribe to your RSS feed so you get this directly every single week.
Thank you. Yeah, RSS. Man, hell, they still do that?
I do. That's how I get your podcast.
Thank you very much. James Corbett, CorbettReport.com, Ernest Hancock, FreedomsPhoenix.com. You get a lot of good stuff. Peace, James.
Take care.